Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a corner of folklore that's a little bit spooky, a little bit weird, and a whole lot comforting. Forget the terrifying monsters that hide under your bed. Tonight, we're going to meet a creature who wants to be invited into your bedroom because its favorite snack is something you probably despise. We're traveling to ancient Japan to encounter a benevolent monster, a gentle giant who actually eats your bad dreams. Frankly, if you're prone to nightmares, you might just find yourself wishing this story were true. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It truly helps more people find these quiet journeys into history and folklore, and I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Drop your city and the current time in the comments below. It's always amazing to see our global community gather before drifting off. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You jolt awake, your breath hitches in your throat, a silent gasp trapped in the sudden, suffocating darkness of your room. Your heart is pounding, a frantic drum against your ribs, and a cold, clammy sweat slicks your skin. You were just there, weren't you, running through an endless, shadowy forest, chased by something you couldn't quite see, a terror that weighed on your chest like a stone. The memory is sharp, vivid, a jagged shard of fear still lodged in your mind. You squeeze your eyes shut, then open them again, hoping the nightmare will dissipate with the darkness. But it doesn't. The images cling to the inside of your eyelids, the gnarled branches, the looming, shapeless pursuer, the feeling of utter helplessness. The room around you, ordinarily a familiar sanctuary, now feels like an extension of the nightmare. The shadows in the corners seem to writhe. The faint creak of the old wooden house sounds like the pursuing footsteps, and the very air feels thick with the lingering tendrils of fear. You lie perfectly still, too afraid to move, too wired to even attempt to close your eyes again. The urge to pull the futon over your head, to bury yourself under the heavy quilts, is almost overwhelming. But you resist. You know that simply hiding from a nightmare won't make it truly go away. It will fester, clinging to the edges of your consciousness, making sleep impossible, making the remaining hours until dawn feel like an eternity. This experience, this terror of a nightmare clinging to you after waking, is a universal human experience. But in ancient Japan, and across many cultures, nightmares weren't just bad dreams. They were often seen as something more. They could be omens, warnings, or even the direct work of malevolent spirits. This mainstream belief gave a palpable, tangible reality to the fear you now feel. It wasn't just your brain playing tricks. It was a genuine spiritual assault. You try to focus on the sounds of the night outside, the distant croak of a frog from the rice paddies, the gentle rustle of bamboo in the breeze. But even these familiar sounds are distorted by your fear, weaving themselves into the lingering narrative of your nightmare. The darkness is oppressive, a heavy blanket of dread. Your mind feels trapped in a cycle, reviewing the terrifying images, reliving the visceral fear. Here's a peculiar little detail about nightmares in this era in some regions. If you woke up from a particularly vivid or disturbing dream, it was customary to immediately tell it to a tree or a river. The idea was that by speaking it aloud to a natural element, you would transfer the bad omen or negative energy of the dream away from yourself, cleansing your mind before it could take root. It was a simple, folk-minus-magic way of externalizing the undispelling fear. But right now, you are too paralyzed by the lingering images to even consider leaving your bed. You try to breathe slowly, deeply, but your breath still catches in your chest. You squeeze your eyes shut, trying to force the images away. You need to sleep. The thought of facing the morning light without having truly rested, without having escaped this fear, is almost as dreadful as the nightmare itself. You feel utterly helpless, trapped in the cold, clammy aftermath of terror. And as you lie there, teetering on the edge of panic, desperate for any reprieve, a forgotten whisper from your childhood stirs in the back of your mind. A tale your grandmother used to tell you on nights when thunder rattled the paper screens, or when the wind howled outside. A story of a creature that prowled the darkness not to instill fear, but to consume it. a benevolent monster. But this very act of recalling folklore in a moment of distress leads to a fascinating academic debate among folklorists and psychologists. Is the creation of creatures like the dream Minnesota a purely cultural phenomenon, a narrative construct to explain the unexplainable, or does it tap into a deeper, universal human psychological need, a coping mechanism, a way for our minds to process and externalize fears that are otherwise too overwhelming? Was the Baku, which we are about to meet, literally believed in as a physical entity by everyone? Or was it more a comforting metaphor, a way for people to give agency to the process of letting go of fear? The exact nature of this belief, the blend of literal and symbolic, remains a rich area for scholarly discussion. The memory of the story is faint, like a distant echo, but it brings with it a tiny, fragile spark of hope. The nightmare still clings to you, a heavy, suffocating presence in the room. But what if the legend was true? What if there was a way to truly banish this fear, not just hide from it? What if, in the depths of this terror, you could find a way to summon a protector? The thought, though barely formed, is enough to stir you from your paralyzed state. You remember its name. You remember the ritual. The silence of the room, once a comforting blanket, now feels thin and stretched, ready to tear at any moment. Your heartbeat, still erratic, seems to fill the entire space, echoing in your ears like the thudding footsteps from your nightmare. You squeeze your eyes shut again, desperate to dispel the lingering images, but they are etched onto the inside of your eyelids, the looming shadow, the twisting branches, the suffocating sense of being relentlessly pursued. The nightmare hasn't entered. It has merely seeped out of your dream and into the very fabric of your waking reality. You open your eyes, staring into the impenetrable darkness. Your futon, usually a haven of warmth and comfort, now feels alien, a flimsy barrier against an unseen threat. The familiar furniture of your room, the low writing desk, the stack of scrolls, the small tensu chest are no longer just ordinary objects. In the oppressive black, their silhouettes seem to shift and distort, taking on menacing form. Is that a hunched figure in the corner, or just your mind playing tricks, painting monsters onto the innocent shadows? You desperately wish for the first sliver of dawn, but the night feels endless, a vast, dark ocean in which you are drowning. Every tiny sound is amplified, distorted. The gentle creak of the old wooden house settling becomes the slow, deliberate footsteps of something approaching. The rustle of a leaf outside the paper shoji screen sounds like a whisper, a low, guttural murmur just beyond your hearing. Your senses are on high alert, every nerve ending screaming. You are hyper-minus aware of the silence. A silence so profound that it seems to conceal something vast and terrifying within its depths. Your skin crawls with an unpleasant chill, a feeling that something unseen is very, very close. You try to shift on your futon, to find a more comfortable position, but your limbs feel heavy, as if weighed down by the fear itself. Your muscles are tense, unwilling to relax, perpetually coiled for flight. You pull your quilt higher, up to your chin, then over your head, seeking refuge, but the darkness under the covers is even more suffocating. You throw it off again, gasping for air. Sleep feels impossible. Every time your eyes drift shut, the nightmare rushes back, vivid and terrifying, pushing you back into wide-minded, clammy wakefulness. The night, which should bring rest, has become a relentless torment. This visceral fear of the dark and the unknown entities that might lurk within it was a deeply ingrained, mainstream belief in ancient Japan. People weren't just afraid of what they couldn't see. They were afraid of what was just about to become visible. This era saw a pervasive belief in yokai, a vast category of supernatural beings, spirits, and monsters. Many yokai were believed to be most active during the liminal hours of twilight and deepest night, when the veil between the human world and the spiritual realm was thinnest. Your lingering nightmare feels like a malicious spirit, a yokai of the mind, now fully present in your room. You close your eyes again, trying to force your thoughts into a calmer pattern, trying to conjure peaceful images, but it's no use. The dark imagery of the nightmare is too strong, too insistent. It pulls at the edges of your consciousness, a constant, low-minus level thrum of dread. You are trapped in the oppressive quiet, unable to escape the echo of your own fear. Here's a peculiar, niche detail related to this intense nocturnal fear in some rural areas. People would sprinkle salt around their futon before going to bed. Salt was believed to have purifying properties, acting as a simple, everyday ward against restless spirits or bad luck. It was a folk practice, a tiny act of defiance against the overwhelming power of the night's unseen dangers. You briefly consider fumbling for the salt pot in your kitchen, but the thought of leaving the perceived safety of your bed, even for a moment, sends a fresh shiver of terror through you. But this overwhelming fear of nightmares in the dark raises a fascinating academic debate among modern scholars of Japanese folklore and psychology. Was this intense belief in literal yokai and dream-spirits a product of cultural conditioning, a way of externalizing subconscious anxieties in a pre-scientific age? Or was it a more complex phenomenon, where the very act of believing in a distinct external threat, like a dream-eating monster or a nightmare yokai, provided a framework for people to process and overcome internal psychological fears? The debate often centers on whether these beliefs were empowering coping mechanisms or simply reflections of a more superstitious worldview. The distinction between a psychological state and a spiritual reality often blurred. You shift again, the futon rustling beneath you, a sound that seems too loud in the suffocating silence. Your heart still pounds. The darkness of the room feels alive, a conscious entity holding you captive. The nightmare, though finished, has left its imprint, a palpable tension in the air. You desperately need it gone. You need something to pull this fear away, to cleanse the air, to give you back the peace you so desperately crave. And in that moment of profound desperation, the faintest memory, like a half-minus forgotten melody, begins to surface from the deepest corners of your childhood mind. A whisper of a creature, a specific name, and a unique promise. The oppressive quiet of your room, thick with the lingering scent of fear, begins to feel less like a solid barrier and more like a vast, empty space. Your pulse, which moments ago was a frantic drum, now settles into a low, anxious thrum. You lie still, suspended in the aftermath of the nightmare, desperate for sleep but terrified of falling back into its clutches. Your mind, exhausted and vulnerable, begins to search for comfort, for any anchor in the churning sea of your fear. And then, it happens. Not a voice, not a sudden revelation, but a gentle brush against the edges of your memory, like a soft breeze stirring forgotten chimes. It's a whisper, an echo from your childhood, a story told in the flickering light of a hearth during a stormy night. Your grandmother's voice, calm and reassuring, speaking of something ancient, something protective, a legend. You recall the feeling of being a small child, huddled close to her, listening as she wove tales of gods and spirits, of creatures both fearsome and benevolent, and among them, a very special one invoked specifically for moments like this. The details are hazy, like trying to grasp smoke, but the core idea is there a creature that could take your fear away, a being that feasted on terror. The memory brings a tiny, fragile spark of hope, a warmth spreading from your chest outwards. It's not logic, no reason. It's the deep, primal comfort of folklore, the belief that there are forces in the world, however strange, that exist to help. This is a mainstream element of Japanese folk belief, the power of storytelling to transmit cultural wisdom, comfort, and coping mechanisms across generations. Grandmothers, in particular, were often the primary custodians of this old tradition, passing down legends that shaped children's understanding of the world and the unseen. You try to grasp the details of the legend, pulling at the threads of memory. It was an odd creature. You remember that much. Not sleek and beautiful like a dragon, or cunning like a fox spirit. It was a bit of a jumble, a collection of parts from different animals, which made it all the more fantastical, strangely trustworthy. Something so unusual couldn't be purely malevolent. Here's a peculiar little detail that would have been part of such a childhood memory. Your grandmother might have playfully tickled your nose with her finger as she described the creature's snout. or wiggled her fingers to mimic its calls. These sensory details, the small, physical acts woven into the telling of the tale, were as much a part of the legend as the words themselves, making the mythical creature feel intimately real and less abstract. You focus, trying to recall the exact name, the specific characteristics. The fear of the nightmare is still present, a cold weight on your chest, but it is now overlaid with a new emotion, curiosity. A desperate, hopeful curiosity. What was it called? How did it work? The memory feels like a lifeline, pulling you back from the brink of despair. But this reliance on folklore in moments of fear, and the passing down of such old traditions, raises a fascinating academic debate among ethnographers and anthropologists. To what extent did people in ancient Japan literally believe in the physical existence of such fantastic creatures? Was it a literal monster that ate bad dreams? Or was it a metaphorical construct, a narrative tool to help children and adults process and externalize their fears? The consensus among scholars is that it was likely a fluid belief, existing on a spectrum. For some, especially children, the creature was very real. For others, it was a comforting story that gave a name and a solution to an otherwise intangible dread. The power of the legend wasn't diminished by its potential metaphor. In fact, its ability to be both literal and symbolic made it even more potent. You find yourself murmuring softly, not to yourself, but to the lingering shadows in the room, to the remnants of your fear. The creature's image begins to solidify in your mind's eye, its strange features forming a protective, if slightly bizarre, silhouette against the darkness. And then, the name, the ancient name whispered in times of nocturnal terror, finally breaks through the haze of memory. It is a soft, gentle sound, a word of profound comfort and gentle power. You know what it is. You know what to do. The Baku. The name hangs in the air, a soft, almost ethereal sound that seems to absorb the lingering fear, transforming the suffocating silence of your room into something more expansive, more hopeful. Baku, the word itself feels like a key, unlocking a door in your mind. This is it. This is the creature your grandmother spoke of, the legendary dream Minasita. A benevolent being whose very existence is dedicated to relieving human suffering from nightmares. You picture it now, the image from the old picture scrolls your grandmother kept, the ones you used to pore over as a child. It wasn't a terrifying beast, not like the demons and vengeful spirits that haunted other tales. The Baku was, but it had a strange, almost comical appearance, a jumble of animal parts that somehow coalesced into something uniquely endearing, and its purpose was singular and gentle. It ate bad dreams. This is the core, mainstream understanding of the Baku in Japanese folklore. It is a protective spirit, a yokai of the good kind, sometimes referred to as a sacred beast. Its origin is often traced back to ancient Chinese mythology, where a similar creature was depicted. Over centuries, as the legend traveled and evolved in Japan, the Baku's role became more specialized and benevolent, focusing almost entirely on its dream-eating abilities. It wasn't just a general protector. It was specifically the antidote to your nocturnal terrors. You remember the specific ritual your grandmother taught when a nightmare struck, when the lingering fear made sleep impossible. You were to turn over in your futon, face your pillow, and whisper its name 3 times. Baku-sen, come and eat my dream. Baku-sen, come and eat my dream. Baku-sen, come and eat my dream. The simple incantation was the key, the invitation, the desperate plea that would summon the gentle monster from the realm of shadows to consume your terror. This seemingly simple act of whispering a name, repeated just so, connects you to a long tradition of Japanese folk magic and animism. It implies a reciprocal relationship with the spirit world. You provide the food your bad dream, and the Baku provides the service peaceful sleep. It's a pragmatic, almost transcational form of piety, yet deeply comforting in its directness. Here's a peculiar little detail about the Baku's specific diet. It only eats bad dreams. It has no interest in your good dreams, your pleasant fantasies, or your mundane nightly meanderings. It hungers only for fear, for dread, for the twisted images that plague your sleep. This means you don't have to worry about accidentally sacrificing a pleasant dream or a moment of joyful unconsciousness. The Baku is discerning. Its appetite is purely for your terror. As you lie there, feeding the lingering tendrils of the nightmare still clutching at your mind, the possibility of the Baku feels like a fragile but powerful promise. It's a solution to an otherwise unsolvable problem, a balm for a wound that conventional wisdom couldn't touch. You think of its strange, composite form, and how such an unlikely creature came to embody such gentle power. This brings up a fascinating academic debate among folklorists. Why do so many cultures, across different continents, develop similar dream-eater or nightmare-banishing figures? Is it a universal human need to externalize and combat the psychological distress of nightmares, leading to similar narrative solutions? Or is there a shared, ancient origin for such myths that traveled across continents? While the specific forms of these dream-eaters vary wildly from benevolent spirits to protected deities, or even specific herbal remedies, the shared function suggests a deep, common thread in the human experience of sleep and fear. The debate often centers on whether these are independent cultural inventions or a testament to shared psychological need. You take a shaky breath. The phantom shadows in the corners of your room seem to shrink back, their menace diminishing under the growing clarity of the Baku's image in your mind. The lingering coldness on your skin lessens. The overwhelming fear of the nightmare is still present, a tight knot in your chest. But now, a path forward has revealed itself. You have a name, you have an image, you remember the ritual, and you are desperate enough to try. The time for whispering is over. It is time for a direct invitation. The lingering dread from your nightmare, though slightly softened by the thought of the Baku, still grips you. Your room is a cavern of deep, unsettling shadows. You know the legend. You have the creature's strange image in your mind. Now comes the most crucial part, the bridge between your fear and its appetite, the summoning. Your grandmother had taught you the ritual, a simple yet powerful incantation. It was a complex spell, or a dramatic plea to the heavens. It was a humble, almost intimate request, spoken directly to the darkness, to the space where the nightmare still felt so real. You just had to whisper its name 3 times and ask for its help. You shift slightly on your futon, turning your head so that your face is pressed lightly against your cool, cotton pillow. This posture is part of the ritual, facing your source of rest, inviting the dream-eater into your sleep-space. You take a shaky breath, the air still tasting of fear. The words feel fragile, almost silly, in the overwhelming silence of the night. But the desperation is real. You begin to whisper, your voice barely audible even to yourself. Baku-san, come on deep my dream. The words feel heavy, laden with the terror you wish to shed. The silence that follows is immense, seemingly swallowing the sound whole. You wait. Nothing, just the continued pounding of your heart. This act of repeating a name or phrase 3 times for magical effect is a deeply ingrained and mainstream practice across many cultures, including Japanese folklore. It's often believed to add potency, to reinforce the intention, making the summoning more effective. The repetition itself can also be a calming, almost meditative act, helping the speaker to focus and quell their own internal turmoil. It's a rhythmic anchor in a moment of emotional chaos. You take another breath, your resolve hardening. The fear is still there, sharpened, insistent. If this doesn't work, you might never sleep again. You whisper again, a little more firmly this time, pushing the words out into the oppressive darkness. Baku-san, come on deep my dream. The second whisper feels stronger, more committed. You are truly invoking it now, putting your desperate hope into the very air. Here's a peculiar little detail about this specific incantation. It's crucial that you don't add any other requests. You can't ask for wealth, or love, or good fortune. The Baku's domain is specific. If you ask it to eat too many good dreams, or if you make demands outside its nature, it might become displeased. There's a risk. Some legends warn that if you summon it too often or for frivolous reasons, the Baku might not just eat your bad dreams, but also your good dreams. your hopes, or even your very capacity for dreaming. This delicate balance means your summoning must be precise, focused only on the nightmare at hand. You are requesting a very specific service, and a very specific payment. You feel a flicker of doubt. What if it works too well? What if it takes more than just the nightmare? But the fear of the lingering nightmare is stronger than any abstract fear of future dreamlessness. You must proceed. You gather all your remaining courage, all your desperate longing for peace. You whisper the name a third time, with all the conviction you can muster, directing it straight into the heart of the fear that still clenches your chest. Baku -se. Come and eat my dream. The words hang in the air, a silent plea, a final, hopeful invitation. This practice of invoking a specific supernatural entity for a particular problem, and the potential risks involved, leads to a fascinating academic debate among scholars of folklore and religious studies. Was the warning about the Baku eating good dreams simply a moralistic tale designed to teach moderation and discourage over-minded reliance on supernatural help? Or did it reflect a deeper understanding of the human psyche, suggesting that if one constantly tries to erase negative experiences, one might inadvertently dull one's capacity for all emotional depth, including positive dreams and aspirations? The debate explores whether such folk warnings were pragmatic psychological advice disguised as supernatural threats, or literal beliefs in the capricious nature of benevolent entities. You lie still, your heart pounding a slow, heavy rhythm. You have done it. You have summoned the dream eater. The whispered words hang in the air, a fragile bridge between your waking terror and the potential peace of true sleep. The darkness of the room feels different now, not empty, but expectant. You listen, not for a thunderous arrival, but for something far more subtle, a change in the very atmosphere, a presence that will announce itself not with a roar, but with a breath, the gentle, silent arrival of the strange, benevolent monster. The three whispered words, Baku -se, come and eat my dream, hang in the air, swallowed by the immense silence of your room. Your heart, which had been frantic, now beats a slow, heavy rhythm, a drumroll of anticipation. You lie perfectly still, eyes wide open, staring into the impenetrable darkness. You listen, not for the crash of thunder or the sound of monstrous footsteps, but for something far more subtle, a change so delicate it might be missed by anyone less desperate. And then, it happens, not with a sudden arrival, but with a gradual, almost imperceptible shift in the very air around you. The darkness, which moments ago felt cold and oppressive, now seems to gain a deeper texture. It's as if a vast, unseen curtain has been drawn, muffling the distant sounds of the night, absorbing the lingering echoes of your fear. The room doesn't get lighter or darker. It simply changes its quality, becoming denser, almost velvety. You feel a subtle warmth, a gentle pressure that was there before, like a vast, unseen presence has subtly settled into the space. It's not the oppressive weight of the nightmare, but a different kind of fullness, a living stillness. There is no sound of movement, no rustle of fur, no creak of floorboards. Yet, you are certain, the air itself feels subtly alive, thrumming with a low, ancient frequency. This silent, almost atmospheric arrival is a hallmark of many benevolent spirits and kami in Japanese folklore. They often announce their presence not with fanfare, but with a delicate shift in the spiritual temperature of a place. You breathe in. The air, which had tasted stale and fearful, now carries a faint, indescribable scent. It's not smoke or flowers, not rain or earth. It's a clean, ancient smell, perhaps like very old wood, or deep mountain moss after a long rain, or even the subtle musk of an unidentifiable, colossal animal. It is the breath of the Baku, filling your room. The darkness doesn't feel threatening anymore. It feels occupied, protected. You sense a vast, calm energy, something immense and slow moving, yet incredibly gentle. It is the sensation of a colossal, quiet guardian, now present in your room, filling every corner of the space with its unseen form. This subtle arrival is a mainstream depiction of the Baku's presence, It doesn't crash through walls or burst into flame. Its power is not in its imposing physicality, though it is large, but in its ability to quietly absorb, to subtly change the spiritual atmosphere. It is the anti-nightmare, and its presence is therefore the antithesis of the nightmare's chaos. Here's a peculiar little detail about how people might have felt the Baku's arrival in ancient times. Sometimes the very air would feel slightly thinner or lighter after its presence, as if a great weight had been lifted from the room. This was believed to be the vacuum created by the Baku inhaling the nightmare. It's a subtle physiological response reinterpreted through the lens of folklore, turning a simple sensation into a spiritual confirmation. You keep your eyes open, straining to see. Your human eyes can perceive nothing in the absolute blackness, but your other senses are heightened. You feel a faint, almost ticklish current in the air, a movement just above your futon, a subtle displacement of space. It's too faint to be a breeze. It's too focused to be random. It is the movement of the Baku, now very close. It is there. You have summoned it. This quiet, unseen arrival, however, raises a fundamental academic debate about the nature of folk belief. When ancient Japanese people described the Baku as silent coming, were they literally imagining an invisible, monstrous elephant minus rhino minus tiger minus ox hybrid tiptoeing into their room? Or was this description a poetic, metaphorical way of describing the internal psychological shift when a person finally manages to calm their own fears and find peace after a nightmare? The academic consensus often acknowledges both possibilities. The belief could be literal for some, particularly children, providing a concrete image for an abstract fear. For others, it might have been a powerful, comforting narrative that helped them understand and cope with their own subconscious processes. The distinction between a deeply felt metaphor and a literal belief often blurs in the realm of folklore. You lie perfectly still, not from fear now, but from awe, and a fragile sense of hope. The heavy, cold feeling of a nightmare is still present within you, but the fear that had saturated the room around you has begun to dissipate, gently drawn away by this unseen presence. The darkness itself seems to hold a new kind of promise. You sense a shift in the subtle pressure point in the air, a movement directly above your head. The presence, vast and unseen, now feels concentrated, focused. You almost hear a deep, slow intake of breath, a subtle vacuum forming in the air. It is beginning its work. You know what comes next, the very specific and unique to love the Baku, the one that makes it so perfectly suited for its benevolent task, is now beginning its gentle, exploratory quest. It is reaching for your nightmare. It is its elephant strong, sniffing and probing the air, seeking out the scent of your lingering terror. The gentle, probing motion of the Baku's unseen trunk continues its delicate exploration. The soft, almost imperceptible current in the air above you, the lingering dread, the suffocating images of your nightmare feel like a dense, heavy cloud clinging to your very consciousness. You lie still, utterly helpless, yet filled with a strange, hopeful anticipation. This is the moment. And then, it happens, not with a sudden sound or a violent gulp, but with a profound, pervasive sensation of being emptied. It begins subtly, as if a quiet, spiritual vacuum has been activated. You feel the cold, sharp tendrils of fear, the ones that had been wrapped tightly around your chest, slowly, inexorably, begin to unravel. The vivid, horrifying images that had burned behind your eyelids, the endless forest, the shapeless pursuer shimmer, then blur, then stretch, like ink dissolving in water. You sense the dream, the nightmare itself, being pulled away from you. It's not a painful sensation, but a definitive one, like a magnet gently drawing iron filings from your very being. The core of the fear, the specific, visceral terror that made you jolt awake, is the first to go. It feels as though a great, unseen weight is being lifted from your chest, and your lungs, which had been constricted by fear, finally expand with a deep, full breath. This is the act of consumption. The Baku is dining. The process is silent, yet you feel its efficacy. The amorphous shadow in the corner of your room, which moments ago seemed to writhe with malevolence, simply becomes a shadow again, fat and harmless. The creaking of the old house, which had been the sound of pursuing footsteps, reverts to the ordinary, comforting sound of settled wood. The air, which was thick with dread, feels suddenly lighter, cleaner, purified. This experience of the nightmare being actively consumed by an external force was a mainstream belief, offering a concrete solution to an otherwise abstract terror. You close your eyes, and this time, the darkness behind your lids is not filled with terrifying visions, but with a profound, almost startling blankness. The nightmare is truly gone. It's not pushed away, not forgotten. It has been eaten. There is a sense of utter finality to its departure. Here's a peculiar, almost contradictory detail about the consumption. While the act is silent, some rare folk tales suggest that the Baku, as it finishes its meal, might let out a faint, almost imperceptible sigh of contentment, a subtle exhalation that causes the air in the room to briefly shimmer or feel slightly warmer. This wasn't a monstrous burp, but a gentle spiritual sigh, indicating its satisfaction in the completeness of its task. It was a final, quiet confirmation of a job well done. You remain perfectly still, processing this profound shift. The fear is gone, utterly. In its place is a vast, empty calm. It's almost unsettling in its completeness. You had been so consumed by terror, and now there is nothing, just a void where the fear used to be. This is the immediate aftermath of the Bacchus meal, a spiritual cleansing that leaves the mind a tabula rasa, perfectly prepared for a new, peaceful sleep. But this complete consumption of a nightmare raises a fascinating academic debate among psychologists, philosophers, and scholars of Japanese spirituality. If a culture genuinely believes a physical entity can eat a bad dream, does that belief actually alter the brain's processing of trauma or anxiety related to sleep? Does it provide a unique form of psychological catharsis or externalization, allowing the individual to bypass complex internal processing by attributing the removal of fear to an outside force? Or is it simply a comforting narrative that gives agency to the unconscious process of fear dissipation? The debate hinges on the philosophical implications of complete emotional arousal versus healthy emotional processing. Is the Baku truly benevolent, or does it offer a peace that comes at an unseen cost to the human psyche's natural resilience? You don't have an answer to that, nor do you need one. All you know is the exquisite, simple reality of this moment. The fear is gone. The calm is here. The sensation is one of absolute relaxation. Your body sinking into the futon, becoming one with the soft bedding. The outside world is muted, distant, irrelevant. Your mind is quiet, serene, completely at ease. The darkness of your room is now a comforting embrace, a soft blanket of peace that soothes your senses. You are safe. You are utterly, wonderfully calm. The Baku has done its work, leaving behind a profound stillness in your heart and mind. You are ready to surrender fully to the depths of sleep, knowing that the fear has been consumed, and your dreams, from this moment on, are yours to navigate without terror. Your journey into the realm of peace has truly begun, guided by the strange, benevolent monster who dines on dread. The profound, empty calm that now envelops you is a direct result of the Baku's meal, where the nightmare had been a suffocating weight, a cold, clenching knot in your chest. There is now nothing. It's a vast, startling emptiness, an absolute absence of fear, dread, or even the faint echo of terror. Your mind, which had been a frantic battlefield, is now utterly still, a blank canvas upon which no disturbing images dare to appear. This is the immediate aftermath of the Bacchus meal. It doesn't just push the nightmare away or hide it. It consumes it, utterly and completely, leaving behind a void where the fear once resided. This profound spiritual vacuum is both startling and immensely relieving. Your muscles, which had been coiled tight with tension, now sag with a sudden, overwhelming relaxation. Your breath, once ragged and shallow, deepens into a slow, even rhythm, filling your lungs with air that feels pure and untainted. You lie perfectly still, aware of the complete silence of your room, It's not the oppressive silence of a moment ago, pregnant with unseen threats. It's a clean, deep quiet, almost spiritual in its stillness. It feels as though the very air has been cleansed, purified of the nightmare's lingering aura. Every atom in the room seems to have settled, accepting this new, peaceful state. This instantaneous shift from terror to profound calm, facilitated by the Baku's intervention, is a core experience in the folklore, the complete removal of the unwanted. Here's a peculiar, almost disquieting detail about this emptiness for some. The immediate aftermath of the Baku's meal wasn't just peaceful, but almost too peaceful. The mind, accustomed to the constant thrum of anxiety or the background noise of daily worries, could find this sudden, absolute void unnerving. It's akin to stepping into a perfectly silent room after a lifetime of constant sound. The lack of stimulus can itself become a form of sensory deprivation, briefly unsettling until the mind readjusts. You feel a sense of lightness, as if your spirit has been unburdened, set free from a heavy chain. The images of the outside world, of your waking life, begin to softly drift through your mind, but they are gentle, untroubled, devoid of any emotional charge. They are simply passing thoughts, not urgent demands or anxious worries. The fear of Ray minus entering the nightmare has vanished. The path to sleep is now wide open, clear, and inviting. But this profound emptiness, this complete void where fear once was, raises a fascinating academic debate among psychologists, philosophers, and scholars of Japanese spirituality. While the immediate relief is undeniable, what are the long-term implications of having such a fundamental human emotion as fear, even the fear of nightmares, literally eaten away? Does it prevent the natural processing of distress? Does it dull one's capacity for empathy or emotional depth in general? If negative experiences are simply removed rather than processed, the debate hinges on the philosophical implications of complete emotional erasure versus healthy emotional processing. Is the Baku truly benevolent, or does it offer a peace that comes at an unseen cost to the human psyche's natural resilience? You don't have an answer to that, nor do you need one. All you know is the exquisite, simple reality of this moment. The fear is gone. The calm is here. The sensation is one of absolute relaxation. Your body sinking into the futon, becoming one with the soft bedding. The outside world is muted, distant, irrelevant. Your mind is quiet, serene, completely at ease. The darkness of your room is now a comforting embrace, a soft blanket of peace that soothes your senses. You are safe. You are utterly, wonderfully calm. The Baku has done its work, leaving behind a profound stillness in your heart and mind. You are ready to surrender fully to the depths of sleep, knowing that the fear has been consumed, and your dreams, from this moment on, are yours to navigate without terror. Your journey into the realm of peace has truly begun, guided by the strange, benevolent monster who dines under it. The profound tranquility in your room, purified by the Baku's recent meal, allows your mind to drift, unburdened by fear. You have understood the creature's distant origins in China and its fascinating journey across the seas. Now, you consider how this mythical beast, this benevolent dream-eater, became so deeply woven into the visual and tangible fabric of Japanese life. It was just a creature of whispered legends. Its image became a pervasive presence, from intricate artworks to everyday household objects. You picture the evolution of the Baku's image in its earliest Japanese artistic depictions. Often on scrolls or temple paintings, it maintained a somewhat formidable, almost fierce appearance, reflecting its original role as a general ward against evil. Its elephantine trunk would be more pronounced, its tiger claws sharper, its rhinoceros eyes more piercing. These were not cuddly figures, but powerful protectors, guardians against play, fire, and malevolent spirit. This mainstream artistic representation mirrored its initial broader protective functions. Over time, however, as its primary role shifted to the gentle consumption of nightmares, the Baku's artistic portrayal softened, while still retaining its composite features. Its expression became less menacing and more benevolent, even slightly whimsical. The eyes might twinkle, the trunk might curl playfully, and the overall impression would be one of benign guardianship. It became the friendly monster, the odd but comforting figure you now visualize, almost a spiritual pet. This visual transformation reflects its changing symbolic significance in the popular imagination. You imagine artisans, long ago, meticulously painting these creatures. A painter might spend days creating a detailed scroll depicting a Baku chasing away shadowy nightmares from a sleeping child. These scrolls, displayed in homes, were not just works of art. They were active charms, believed to imbue the space with the Baku's protective presence. The visual act of seeing the Baku in action was thought to reinforce its power, a constant reminder that fear could be consumed. Here's a peculiar and quite niche detail about Baku art. Sometimes, instead of a full, multi-limbed creature, early Edo period woodblock prints would depict just a disembodied Baku head. This detached head, often floating in the air with its elephantine trunk extended, was still considered potent. It focused the viewer's attention solely on the dream-eating mechanism, making the protective power even more immediate and less distracted by the full composite body. It was a kind of visual shorthand for its specific function, a disquieting yet comforting image of specialized supernatural intervention. The image of the Baku permeated various art forms. You recall seeing it subtly incorporated into temple carvings, its grotesque yet charming face peering from wooden eaves, protecting the sacred space. It was sometimes etched onto bronze mirrors, believed to reflect away bad luck and evil influences. Perhaps you even owned a small, intricately carved Nitsuke miniature toggle in the shape of a Baku, a charming piece of art that all served as a pocket-sized guardian, keeping bad omens away throughout your day. But this pervasive artistic representation of the Baku, its transformation from fearsome guardian to benevolent dream-eater, sparks a fascinating academic debate among art historians and cultural anthropologists. Was the softening of the Baku's image a purely artistic evolution, driven by changing aesthetic tastes? Or was it a direct reflection of a deeper psychological need in Japanese society to create more comforting, less terrifying figures to deal with common anxieties like nightmares? Some scholars argue that the cute-minisification of certain yokai, including the Baku over centuries, shows a cultural trend towards domesticating the supernatural, making it more approachable and less terrifying, thereby integrating it more seamlessly into daily life. The debate centers on whether the art reflected belief or actively shaped it. The most common, and perhaps most comforting, form of Baku art was its presence on everyday objects related to sleep. You imagine a child's pillow, its soft fabric embroidered with a small, stylized Baku face, or a bed sheet printed with repeated patterns of the dream-eater. These weren't just decorative items. They were active charms, silent sentinels, watching over the vulnerable sleeper. The physical proximity of the Baku's image was believed to amplify its protective power, making it a constant, tangible source of reassurance throughout the night. The very act of seeing the Baku's image before you went to sleep, or even subconsciously as you drifted off, was a powerful psychological tool. It wasn't just a story. It was a visual promise. The creature was there, ready. This quiet, comforting omnipresence of the Baku's image, transforming it from a distant myth to an intimate household guardian, made it one of the most beloved and practical benevolent monsters in Japanese folklore. The room is utterly quiet now, bathed in the soft glow of what might be the moon outside your paper screens. You feel a deep sense of serenity. The fear is gone, and as you prepare to fully surrender to sleep, you recognize that the Baku's power isn't just in its magical act of consumption, but in its pervasive, gentle reminders throughout the day and night that help is always at hand. But even with such a benevolent creature, there are always rules, always boundaries. A quiet warning, often whispered alongside the comforting tales that too much of a good thing, even dream-eating, can have its own subtle consequences. The profound tranquility in your room, sustained by the Baku's thorough cleansing, is absolute. You lie on your futon, your head resting on the pillow adorned with the dream-eater's image, feeling a deep sense of security. The knowledge of its very protected duties from warding off evil spirits to guarding against fire, now a comforting blanket woven into the very fabric of your perception. But even with such a benevolent guardian, Baku often carries subtle warnings, wise admonitions passed down through generations. The Baku, for all its kindness, is not a limitless resource, and its power, if misused, could have unexpected consequences. You recall a particular detail your grandmother would sometimes whisper, her voice slow and serious. After telling you comforting tales of the Baku, she would caution against over-minus reliance, against asking too much of the dream-minus eater. The Baku, she'd explain, is eager to help, always hungry for bad dreams, but if you constantly call upon it, if you beg it to devour every single dream, good or bad, simply to achieve an ultimate, dreamless peace, you risk a profound and unintended side effect. The warning was clear if you repeatedly asked the Baku to eat all your dreams, out of a desire for absolute tranquility or a fear of any mental disturbance. It might begin to consume more than just your nightmares. It might start to feast on your good dreams, those joyful flights of fancy, those pleasant nocturnal adventures that bring solace and inspiration. Worse, it could even devour your hopes and aspirations, the very dreams you hold for your waking life. And in the most extreme cases, some legends warned, the Baku could eventually eat your capacity for dreaming itself, leaving you in a state of perpetual, dreamless sleep, a profound void where imagination and aspiration once resided. This subtle yet powerful warning is a mainstream aspect of the Baku lore, often serving as a cautionary tale alongside its benevolent image. You remember the quiet chill that would run down your spine when she spoke of this. It was a threat, but a philosophical reminder of balance. The Baku is a gift, a tool for managing fear, not a shortcut to a completely empty, consequence-free existence. Dreams, even confusing ones, are a vital part of the human spirit. To surrender them all is to lose a piece of yourself. Here's a peculiar, almost poetic detail about this warning. Some folk tales suggest that the Baku, when it eats a good dream, does so with a sigh of sadness. It feels no pleasure from consuming joy, only the emptiness of an unfulfilled hunger. This subtle detail humanizes the monster, implying a moral dimension to its actions and making the warning even more impactful. It's not malicious, it's simply fulfilling an overzealous request. Mournfully, as you lie there, feeling the tranquility of your room, you understand the wisdom in this ancient caution. It teaches restraint, not just in fear, but in all desires. It reminds you that sometimes, even unpleasant experiences are part of the full tapestry of life, and that a mind entirely devoid of dreams, even pleasant ones, would be a diminished one. It's a call to appreciate the complexity of your inner world, even its darker corners, and to use the Baku's power wisely, as a tool for healing, not for eradication. This nuanced warning about the dangers of excessive dreaming seeking sparks a fascinating academic debate among folklorists, psychologists, and philosophers. Is this a sophisticated, ancient form of psychological advice, disguised as a supernatural warning? Does it reflect an intuitive understanding that constantly suppressing or eating negative experiences, even in dreams, might lead to a broader emotional flatness or a loss of imagination? Or is it a moralistic overlay, perhaps influenced by Buddhist teachings on attachment and desire, urging moderation and self-reliance, rather than supernatural dependency? The debate explores whether these warnings are literal supernatural consequences or profound metaphorical insights into the human condition, passed down through centuries in the guise of a children's story. You breathe deeply, feeling the gentle rise and fall of your chest. The nightmare is gone, your mind is clear, and you know, with quiet certainty, that you will only call upon the Baku when the fear is truly overwhelming, when the nightmare is too much to bear. For tonight, its work is done. The deep peace it brought is enough. You have learned the lesson of moderation, not from a scroll, but from the ancient whispers of a benevolent, dream-eating monster. The room remains perfectly still, held in a profound calm. The Baku, having consumed its fill of your terror, has quietly receded, leaving behind no trace but this exquisite sense of serenity. You feel its lasting impact, not as an active presence, but as a deep, ingrained feeling of safety. The warning about over-minus reliance, paradoxically, strengthens your appreciation for its precise and limited benevolence. As you drift further towards the threshold of true sleep, your mind is not blank, but subtly open, receptive to whatever dreams might come, good or otherwise. For now, the nightmare is a distant memory, a faint shadow on the edge of a vast commotion. The moon might peek through your shoji screen, painting pale patterns on the wall. The gentle rustle of bamboo outside provides a soft, rhythmic lullaby. You are enveloped in the deep, restorative quiet of peaceful night. The stillness of your room is profound, a deep well of peace, undisturbed by any lingering fear. The ancient wisdom of the Baku, its enduring presence in folk belief despite scholarly skepticism, has brought you a quiet calm. Your mind, now clear and rested, can comfortably drift forward through time, leaving behind the whispers of ancient Japan to explore how this peculiar, benevolent monster has continued its journey, adapting and thriving in the vibrant, modern culture of today. You open your minds, ironed fast minus forward centuries. The wooden damas is replaced by bustling neon cities, the quiet tri-paddies by towering skyscrapers. The soft glow of oil lamps gives way to the harsh glare of electric lights and glowing screens. Yet, even in this radically transformed landscape, the Baku, the dream minus eater, is not forgotten. Far from it, it has found new life, new forms, and new audiences in the wildly imaginative worlds of modern Japanese popular culture. You see it now, not just in dusty scrolls, but emblazoned on the pages of manga, its elephant trunk curling expressively as it devours a nightmare. It might be a wise, ancient companion to a troubled hero, or a mischievous spirit causing comical chaos by accidentally eating a good dream. Its unique, composite form, once a source of ancient power, now makes it instantly recognizable and often incredibly cute, fitting perfectly into the aesthetic of kawaii cuteness that permeates so much of modern Japanese design. This widespread representation in manga and anime is a mainstream aspect of the Baku's enduring legacy. You imagine flipping through a vibrant comic book, seeing the Baku in action. Perhaps a terrified child calls its name, and a puff of smoke or a swirl of light manifests the creature, its vast snout ready to inhale the shadowy figures of dread. The visual storytelling of manga allows the Baku to become more dynamic, more expressive, bringing its ancient power to life for millions of readers, many of whom might never encounter its original folklore. And then, you see it leap from the static page to the moving screen. The Baku appears in anime, its elephant trunk swaying with fluid motion, its rhino eyes blinking with surprising sentience. It might be a background character, a subtle nod to its protective role, or a central figure in a children's show, teaching young viewers about coping with fear in a gentle, fantastical way. Imagine a young protagonist, restless after a bad dream, summoning a soft, furry Baku with glowing eyes, its unique form providing comfort through its sheer, improbable existence. The transition from static imagery to animated life has given the Baku an entirely new dimension of presence, allowing it to move and breathe in ways its ancient creators could only imagine. Here's a peculiar, almost meta-minus textual detail about the Baku's modern resurgence in some contemporary manga and anime. The warnings about the Baku accidentally eating good dreams or the capacity for dreaming are often playfully exaggerated for comedic or dramatic effect. A character might accidentally call it too many times and wake up devoid of all creativity, or unable to enjoy a simple pleasure. This shows how modern creators are not just copying the old folklore but actively engaging with its nuances, twisting its rules, and giving it new, often humorous, interpretations relevant to contemporary anxieties like creative blocks or emotional numbness. But the Baku's modern life isn't limited to visual media. You find it in video games, perhaps as a benevolent spirit that helps the player character overcome psychological obstacles or provides healing by absorbing negative status effects. It might be a rare, powerful familiar that you can summon, or a non-player character who offers wisdom and comfort in a fantastical world. Its unique design translates wonderfully into digital landscapes, allowing players to directly interact with its ancient power in a completely new way. Imagine a player, their character suffering from a nightmare debut, seeking out a Baku NPC who then performs a gentle animation, inhaling the debuff and restoring the character's peace. This vibrant, pervasive resurgence of the Baku in modern Japanese popular culture sparks a fascinating academic debate among media theorists, cultural studies scholars, and folklorists. Is this simply a process of commodification and commercialization, where ancient folklore is stripped of its spiritual depth and turned into marketable characters for entertainment? Or is it a form of cultural preservation and rejuvenation, where these ancient legends, by finding new life in modern media, remain relevant and accessible to new generations, preventing them from being truly forgotten? The debate often centers on the balance between authenticity and adaptation. How much does a myth need to change to survive? And at what point does it lose its original meaning? The Baku's journey from a sacred scroll to a smartphone game illustrates this complex tension perfectly. The room is utterly quiet, filled with a deep, peaceful calm. The moon, perhaps, now casts a faint glow through your window, painting soft, shifting patterns on the wall. You feel your body sinking deeper into the futon, every muscle relaxed, every thought clear. The journey through time, from ancient Chinese texts to modern Japanese screens, has been completed. The peculiar, benevolent dream minor theta has traversed centuries, adapting its form and its message, but always retaining its core purpose. You are safe, you are protected, the nightmare is gone, and as you finally, truly, surrender to sleep, you feel the enduring presence of the Baku, not just as a creature of legend, but as a timeless promise, a gentle guardian always vigilant, silently waiting to consume your fears, ensuring that even in a world transformed by technology, the deep, fundamental human need for peace and rest remains watched over by a friendly monster. Its watch is eternal. Its hunger for your bad dreams a constant, comforting presence. The world of ancient folklore and modern media begins to softly blur, its vibrant colors and intricate details gently dissolving like mist. The peculiar, composite form of the Baku, its elephant trunk, its rhino eyes, its tiger claws softens into a warm, indistinct glow, a comforting presence that wraps around you. The distant rumble of the city, the faint hum of technology, all melt away, replaced by the profound, limitless quiet of your own mind. You are floating now, unburdened by thoughts of past or future, reality or myth. The feeling is one of absolute security, a peace so deep it feels like sinking into a cloud. The benevolent presence of the dream minor theta, whether a tangible spirit or a cherished story, has quieted every anxious whisper, every lingering doubt. There is nothing left to fear, nothing left to worry about. Let the last conscious images fade away, like embers cooling in a hearth. You are being watched over by ancient guardians, by forgotten dreams, by the gentle promise of uninterrupted rest. The air around you is still, pure, and utterly serene. Just breathe, and full. You are safe. You are cherished. You are finally, completely, asleep. The end of the article. Good night.